Grief doesn't always come with tears. Sometimes it comes in silence. In the way your body moves through the day like it's wearing someone else's skin. In the way time folds. And the hours stop meaning anything. That's how it felt after my father died. It wasn't sudden. Cancer rarely is. But even when you're told it's coming, even when you watch the body deteriorate and the voice weaken and the appointments grow further apart, you still somehow believe they'll wake up one more time, that there will be another lunch, another story, another Sunday morning call. But then there isn't, and what's left is the absence, a carved-out space where a presence used to live. In the weeks after the funeral, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't drink myself into sleep or lash out at the world. I did something worse. I stopped feeling anything at all. I went to work, sat in meetings, answered emails, laughed when people needed me to. But inside, I was a quiet room with the lights turned off. Claire, my wife, noticed first. She watched me shrink behind my routines. She asked questions softly at first. Then more urgently. You haven't looked at your phone in hours. You skipped the gym again. You're not eating. I kept saying I was fine, that I just needed time. She didn't believe me. One evening, after dinner, she sat across from me at the table and placed her hand over mine. You're trying to carry all of this alone, she said, but you don't have to. I didn't reply. Let's find someone for you to talk to. She continued, a therapist, someone trained for this. And maybe a trainer too, to get your energy back. She paused. And Michael, you respect him, right? He's been mentoring you for years. Maybe reconnecting with him will help you figure out your next steps. I stared at her. There was no pity in her voice. Just resolve. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand gently. I'll be with you every step. You're not alone in this. And something inside me cracked, not broken, but softened. I nodded. We found a therapist, Dr. Keller. He worked out of a quiet office in a converted brownstone near the edge of the city. No couches, no tissue boxes too close. Just a desk, 2 chairs, and a window that looked out on a slow-moving street. He didn't ask for childhood memories. He didn't probe about my mother. He asked about the ache in my chest and what I did to silence it. Claire drove me to my first 2 appointments. She waited outside with coffee, scrolling her phone. The third time, she walked in to meet him. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. He hasn't been this open in weeks. Dr. Keller smiled politely. We found a personal trainer. His name was Devon, younger than me by a decade, built like someone who took pride in his reflection. But he was kind, patient, focused on building, not punishing. Claire came with me the first few sessions. She said it helped her too. We both need to be strong, she said. Eventually, she began working out with Devon separately. He said I have great form. She told me once, laughing. I was happy she was taking care of herself. And then there was Michael, my old mentor from when I first entered the corporate world. He was charismatic, smart, always 2 steps ahead of the room. We hadn't spoken much in the last year. Life had gotten busy, but Claire reached out to him on my behalf. He said he'd love to grab coffee and catch up. She told me, he always believed in you. She even joined us for one of our meetings. You're both so similar, she said, looking between us. It's no wonder you 2 worked so well together. At the time, I felt surrounded by care, held up by people who wanted me to heal. I felt gratitude for Claire, for her initiative, for the men who had stepped into my life when I felt most hollow. What I didn't realize, what I couldn't have imagined, was that this was not a circle of healing. It was a triangle of access. And I was the weak point. I thought I was rebuilding. But I was just setting the stage. I had trusted the right process. I just didn't know I'd placed it in the hands of the wrong people. But in those early days, in that haze of pain and passivity, all I saw was support. I didn't notice how often Claire checked in on Devon's availability. I didn't question why she texted Michael after meetings without including me. I didn't ask why she insisted on coordinating my therapy schedule herself. I thought she was protecting me. I didn't realize she was embedding herself into the architecture of my recovery, not to witness it, but to rewire it. And maybe that's the worst kind of betrayal. Not when someone stabs you in the back, but when they hold your hand while leading you toward the blade. In the beginning, it all felt productive. The therapist appointments grounded me. I started looking forward to my sessions with Dr. Keller, not because they fixed anything overnight, but because they carved out a space where I didn't have to pretend. I could sit in that small, quiet room and say things out loud that I hadn't even admitted to myself. Claire would wait for me in the car, or sometimes just down the street at a coffee shop. She never pushed for details afterward, only asked, "How was it?" with a softness that made me believe she truly wanted to know. One day, though, I came out of the office and found her chatting with Dr. Keller by the front steps. She was laughing at something he said. Their posture was relaxed, too relaxed. I froze for a moment before walking up. "Oh, there you are," she said brightly, as if it were the most natural thing. "We were just talking about how helpful these sessions have been." Dr. Keller smiled, calm and measured as always. But there was a flicker of something in his eyes, recognition that I'd noticed. That he'd been caught in a moment of informality not meant for my view. Claire squeezed my hand. "I invited him for lunch sometime. He deserves a proper thank you." I nodded slowly. "Okay." I didn't think much of it then. Just a generous gesture. She was like that, warm, social, eager to connect. Then there was Devon, our personal trainer. At first, it had been my idea to bring Claire along. A couple's fitness challenge, something light-hearted. We laughed our way through lunges and burpees, groaning about sore muscles, sharing smoothies after sessions. But after a while, she began scheduling sessions without me. "You're busy," she said, "and I want to stay consistent." "Of course," I replied. "That's great." She mentioned him more often, joked about how he pushed her harder than I did, showed me new exercises he taught her. Once, she said, "Devon says I'm more coachable than you." With a playful smirk, I laughed. But inside, something shifted. Michael was the last piece. My mentor, the man who had taken me under his wing early in my career. He was a legend in our industry, sharp, polished, charismatic. He had helped me navigate impossible clients, negotiate promotions, and even write my resignation letter for a job I'd outgrown. Claire adored him. They met years ago, during a company holiday party. He'd charmed everyone, but Claire in particular. "He's like a character from a movie," she had said that night. Suave but grounded. After my father's death, when I struggled to find direction, Claire reached out to him without telling me. "He's happy to meet you again," she said, handing me his number. "He's always believed in your potential." We met for coffee. Claire came along. Again. At first, I appreciated it. She made conversation flow easily, drew Michael out, brought lightness to our heavy conversations. But then Michael started inviting her to industry mixes, even when I wasn't available. "She's got a great head for strategy," he said once. "You should let her consult on that side project you mentioned." It felt flattering, encouraging, until it didn't, until the night she came home late from one of those networking events. Tipsy but glowing, and dropped her heels by the door like she was 17 again. "What did you two talk about?" I asked. "Oh, you know, just the usual, work, life, dreams." She smiled, walked past me. "He said you're lucky to have someone like me." I didn't reply. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Not in her words, but in her tone. Not in her actions, but in the energy between us. The next time I saw Devon, he mentioned a new supplement Claire was trying, one I hadn't heard of. The next time I saw Dr. Keller, he referenced a moment from Claire's life, something she hadn't told me she'd shared with him. The next time I saw Michael, he teased, "Claire's got more fire than you. Don't let her outgrow you." It was subtle, too subtle, a string of harmless moments that, when connected, formed a shape I couldn't ignore. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid, that grief distorts your perception. But the gut doesn't lie. And my gut had begun to coil tightly with every casual mention of her name from these men. It wasn't just that she was interacting with them. It was that she had become essential to their lives. She laughed with them in ways she no longer laughed with me. She updated them before she updated me. She occupied their attention, their affection, their admiration, and I, who had once been the center of her world, had become the recipient of her performance. The smile, the concern, the support, it was all still there. But now, it felt scripted, practiced, like she was managing a role, not living a relationship. I wanted to confront it. But how do you accuse someone of being too helpful? How do you say, I think you care too much about the people who are helping me heal, without sounding ungrateful? So I didn't say anything. I watched, and waited, and told myself, again and again, she's doing this for you. She said you're not alone. But loneliness doesn't always mean isolation. Sometimes, it means being surrounded by people who smile, while slowly stepping further away. And in that growing distance, I began to understand, not everyone who stands beside you is standing for you. Some are just standing close enough to be invited in when you fall. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of day that should have passed without consequence. My phone had died in the middle of an unexpected call from work, an emergency I needed to address. Claire was upstairs. Her phone was charging on the kitchen counter. I didn't ask, I just picked it up. The screen lit up instantly, no passcode. Or maybe the fingerprint still registered from the last time she touched it. A message notification was already open. Instagram DMs. The name on top, Devon, our trainer. The message, short and sudden, like a slap to the chest. I still feel shaky when I think about that night in the shower. No context, no emojis, just that line, hanging there like a wire cut from a ceiling, sparking on the floor. For a moment, I forgot why I had even picked up the phone. I stared at the screen, my hand slowly lowering it to the countertop like it had become too heavy to hold. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink, just reread the sentence again and again, as if the letters might rearrange themselves into something less intimate. But they didn't, and suddenly, all those moments, her scheduling extra sessions, her laughter when she read his texts, her compliments about how he pushed her harder than I could, clicked together like puzzle pieces I hadn't known were connected. She had slept with him, in the place where I was supposed to be rebuilding. I placed the phone back exactly where I found it, didn't lock the screen, didn't touch anything else. Then I walked into the other room and sat down. I don't remember how long I sat there. When Claire came downstairs 10 minutes later, I smiled, asked if she wanted anything from the grocery store. She said she was fine. I left the house, but not to buy food. I went to the coffee shop where I used to work on freelance projects. I pulled out my laptop. Her laptop, technically, we shared it since mine had crashed months ago. She had never signed out of her browser. I wasn't proud of what I did next. But when you feel the floor start to tilt under your feet, you reach for anything that might hold weight. I opened her notes app first. She had a folder titled Healing Journal, a digital log of my recovery, sessions with Dr. Keller, insights from grief, emotional wins. Most of it was thoughtful, caring, until one entry stopped me cold. Session 5: Boundaries blurring. What began as support now feels like something more. We're not pretending anymore. It's not professional. The date was 2 weeks ago. It was a Wednesday. That was the day she told me she couldn't drive me to therapy because she had a work call. I remembered waiting for the Uber. Remembered how she kissed me on the cheek as I left. Remembered the text she sent an hour later. Proud of you. Keep going. I kept scrolling. Another entry. I should feel guilty, but I don't. I feel alive. I feel seen. And then I found the email, tucked away in her drafts folder. Subject line, that night. It was addressed to Michael, my mentor. I haven't stopped thinking about the way you looked at me at the bar after the pitch. The way your hand touched mine when no one was watching. You make me feel like a version of myself I didn't know still existed. I closed the laptop. I stared out the window at nothing. 3 men, 3 points of access. My trainer, my therapist, my mentor, the 3 people I had trusted most during the most fragile season of my life. And all of them had crossed a line. But it wasn't just them. It was Claire. She wasn't collateral. She was complicit. She had embedded herself into every step of my healing process, not to protect me, but to split me from the inside. And the question that hit me hardest wasn't, how could she? It was I the last one to know? Had they talked about me after I left the room? Had they laughed over drinks about the man who couldn't see what was happening in his own house? Had they bonded over their shared deception? And what did it say about me? That I trusted them all so fully. That I had handed them the keys to my recovery and asked nothing in return but honesty. I left the coffee shop without finishing my drink. When I got home, Claire was on the phone. She smiled when she saw me. I smiled back. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The betrayal wasn't new. Only my awareness of it was. The rest had been happening for months. Right in front of me. Under the warm glow of support. In the language of love. In the names I thought were safe. And now I knew. And now I could never unknow. After I saw the messages and read her journal entries, the only thing left to do was connect the dots. I opened my calendar, hers too, and laid them side by side. I began comparing timestamps, messages, and memories that had always seemed separate, each its own little moment. Its own quiet decision, but lined up, they told a different story. I started with Dr. Keller. There were 2 sessions I'd missed in the last month. One because of a sudden call from the office. The other because of food poisoning. I remembered how apologetic I felt canceling him, how Claire had offered to let him know herself. Said she'd swing by to grab some of the materials he wanted me to work on. Now I knew she had stayed longer than necessary. There was a receipt, coffee shop 2 blocks from his office. Same date, 2 drinks. There was a new appointment on her calendar labeled, reflection lunch. And then I remembered the day she came home glowing, saying, I think Dr. Keller really sees you, not just as a patient, but as a man trying. But I wasn't there that day. So what was she reflecting on? Next was Devon. Claire had signed up for a deep core correction package. I remembered the phrase because she had joked about how ridiculous it sounded. Sounds like sci-fi. She laughed, but I need it. At the time, I had nodded, grateful she was investing in her own health. What she hadn't told me was that the sessions were held in our home. In our living room, that Devon had scheduled private instruction, while I was away on a weekend retreat I had hoped would help me process my grief. I found one of his business flyers on the counter the morning I left. She waved it off, just some promo stuff he handed out. But there were timestamps, doorbell camera logs, his car in the driveway 3 times that weekend. My phone pinged from the mountains while her phone pinged from the kitchen. Then there was Michael, the man who had mentored me through more career transitions than I could count. The man who gave me the courage to leave a toxic job. The man who told me he'd treat me like a son. He'd always been fond of Claire. But I'd never seen it until I couldn't unsee it. That conference, just a month prior, was the first time I had to bow out of an industry event due to being sick. Claire had insisted on going in my place. You've worked too hard not to have someone represent the project, she said. Michael had offered to accompany her. He's safe, she'd said. The night she got home, she was giddy, her dress still perfectly pressed, her perfume still strong. She said the event had gone better than expected. She showed me a photo, her and Michael standing beside the sponsor banner. His hand on her waist. I hadn't noticed it then. Now it was all I could see. The next morning, she said, Michael said I have a real presence. He thinks I should do more panels. And I believed her, because why wouldn't I? She had positioned herself as a bridge to all the men I needed to survive my grief. But really, she had made herself the gatekeeper. She wasn't just there to support me. She had placed herself between me and the people who were supposed to help me rebuild. And somewhere along the line, that line blurred, then vanished. They weren't helping me, they were helping themselves. And she let them. She called it healing, she called it support, she wrapped it all in the language of love. But what I began to realize was that they weren't just drawn to her. They were drawn through me. They entered my life by way of my pain. And then, they took from it. Dr. Keller no longer looked me in the eye during sessions. Devon stopped asking about my progress and only spoke about Claire's form. Claire's drive. Claire's flexibility. Michael's advice grew vague, his mentorship increasingly reserved. It was like they had all become full, and I was the emptied vessel that made it possible. The betrayal wasn't in the sex, or the flirtation, or the late-night messages I was never supposed to see. The betrayal was in the consent I unknowingly gave to be used as a doorway. She used my grief like a password, and they entered with smiles. I looked back on every moment they told me I was doing great. Every time Claire told me, they really care about your progress. What they cared about was proximity. To her, to each other, to something intimate built on my brokenness. And I, the man in mourning, the man rebuilding, had unknowingly hosted a triangle of trespasses. I couldn't tell which was worse. That I trusted them, or that she used that trust to make it so easy for them to walk in. 3 men, 3 timelines, 3 carefully constructed lies, all wrapped in the language of encouragement. And behind them, a woman who claimed to stand beside me in recovery. But really, she was always facing someone else. Always opening the door, and always making sure I never saw her do it. Until now, there's a moment, not dramatic or loud, when the decision to walk away settles in like a low, final note. Mine came on a Thursday morning. While the world was still quiet, I opened my calendar and deleted 3 recurring events. Therapy, weekly with Dr. Keller, training, Mondays and Thursdays with Devon, mentorship check-in, bi-weekly with Michael. Gone. No explanation emails, no rescheduling attempts, no thank you notes. Just delete. Then I opened my phone settings and changed my number. The carrier asked if I wanted to notify my contacts. I declined. I closed that account, created a new one, a new email, a new password, a new lock on the door. I didn't do it out of revenge. I didn't do it to punish anyone. I did it because healing, I realized, could not begin in the same room where harm had been normalized. When Claire asked what I was doing that morning, I told her calmly, resetting things. She didn't press. Later that day, she saw the laptop open. My inbox cleared out, my calendar blank. What's going on? She asked. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't accuse. Didn't mention the Instagram messages, the journal entries, the emails, or the memories I had now revised with painful clarity. I simply said, no one in this house helped me heal. They just helped each other stay entertained. She flinched, like the words struck her physically. But I didn't stay to watch them settle. I packed a single bag, a week's worth of clothes, my journal, 1 book, and the old photo of my father that had sat quietly on my nightstand, untouched by all the noise. Then I walked out the front door. No note, no ceremony, just absence. I booked a cabin 3 hours away. No Wi-Fi, spotty cell service, a place where no one knew my name or my grief, a place that wouldn't remind me of all the people who claimed they cared, but crossed into spaces never meant for them. The first night, I didn't sleep. My body kept waiting for a message, a call, some echo of the life I had abandoned. But silence is a teacher. And that night it taught me this: peace isn't always comfort. Sometimes, it's just the absence of chaos. I woke up early the next morning, made coffee, sat on the porch, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel watched. I wasn't performing strength. I wasn't managing anyone else's emotions. I was simply there, unobserved, unexplained. It wasn't joy, but it was honest. Over the next few days, I walked through the woods. I wrote letters I never planned to send. I read. I cooked. I stood in front of a mirror and tried to meet my own eyes again. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't poetic. But it was real. And real was something I hadn't felt in far too long. I thought about Claire. About the way she smiled when she told me those men were helping. About how she positioned herself as my protector, while quietly becoming my replacement. I thought about Dr. Keller's gaze, too soft, too long, Devon's flirty texts, Michael's late-night calls, I thought about the way none of them reached out after I vanished. Not one message, not one attempt to ask, "Are you okay?" Because they knew what they'd done. And they also knew I wouldn't come back. I didn't. A week turned into 2. I extended the cabin stay, found a local gym, started cooking my own meals instead of ordering in, began meditating, badly, at first, then with more steadiness. One evening, I wrote in my journal, "Healing begins when the people who harmed you no longer have access to you." It was true. I hadn't told Claire where I was. I hadn't told anyone, because for the first time, I wasn't trying to prove I was okay. I just wanted to be. And somehow, that was enough. There's a kind of clarity that only comes after a total break. When you stop editing your pain for the comfort of others. When you realize that closure isn't a conversation, it's a boundary. And the most powerful thing you can say isn't, "I forgive you." It's, "You no longer get to speak into my life." So I didn't say goodbye. I just ended the sentence. And finally, for the first time since I buried my father, I felt like I had started something new. They say healing begins when you find the right people. What they never tell you is that sometimes, the people wearing the healer's badge are the very ones who know exactly where it hurts, and how to press harder. It took me months to realize that my pain had been curated. Not cared for, that the people I let into the most vulnerable corners of my soul weren't there to protect it, but to explore it, occupy it, and eventually claim it as their own. They didn't fix me, they fed off me. Each of them knew I was grieving. Each of them saw the fracture. And instead of patching the crack, they stepped into it, built themselves a home there, hung pictures of support and lit candles of concern. And I, desperate for structure, let them, because I wanted to believe in care, in empathy, in the promise that healing was possible if you simply showed up enough. I thought Claire was the architect of that sanctuary, the one who brought in the therapist, the trainer, the mentor, the one who said, "You're not alone." But now I understand. She didn't build a sanctuary. She built a corridor, a passage through me, into places she could hide, places she could indulge, places I never looked because I was too focused on repairing myself. Her betrayal wasn't born from my weakness. It wasn't a result of my vulnerability. It was rooted in something colder, deeper. She saw my openness as an opportunity, not for connection, but for control. And that realization has been the most sobering part of all. Because no one warns you that the very structures meant to lift you up can be built on foundations designed to collapse beneath you. No one tells you that trust is often breached not by strangers, but by the familiar hands that once held yours in silence. I don't blame my grief. I don't blame my softness. I blame the myth that healing is always kind. Because it's not. Healing can be cruel when it's manipulated, when it's marketed as intimacy and served with a side of betrayal. They all had different roles, therapist, trainer, mentor, but their lines blurred quickly. And Claire, she was the common denominator, the one who made their access seamless, the one who kept saying, "I'm here for you," while drawing closer to them. I wonder sometimes what she tells herself. If she rewrites the story in her head. I was helping. He was distant. I didn't mean for it to go that far. But betrayal doesn't need intention. It just needs silence. And she gave it plenty. What I've come to understand now, months after walking away, after the number changes, the inbox deletions, the nights spent alone in the stillness of my own rebuilding, is this. Trust is not something you give freely because someone stands close while you're broken. It's something earned slowly, deliberately, and watched carefully, even when your eyes are full of tears. Claire wasn't the villain in some dramatic novel. She was worse. She was the quiet saboteur in a story I thought we were co-writing. She didn't burn the house down. She simply invited others to live in it while I was sleeping. And when I woke up, I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I just walked out. Because the truth is, healing doesn't always come from being held. Sometimes it comes from learning to hold yourself alone, in the mess you didn't create, but finally get to clean up without interference. I am still healing, but now, I do it without applause. without spectators, and certainly without those who call themselves helpers, but never once ask how they made things worse. And if there's one lesson I will carry forward, etched into every quiet moment, every cautious connection, every earned embrace, it's this: just because someone stays after the session ends doesn't mean they're staying for you. Graduation cap lesson learned. Even healing can be exploited if you hand it to the wrong people.